Hi there, it's Balthazar again, and today I would like to share with you a tarot technique that I use. And this tarot spread, this technique is intended or was devised by myself for communicating with spirits. Now, I am a psychic reader, I'm a medium, I'm a root worker, but I'm also a hermetic magician. That means I practice ceremonial magic. And often in those circumstances, we are evoking spirits or angels or various other spiritual creatures and communicating with them. And if you're a spirit worker of some sort, whether that is in the medium of scrying or through astral vision or some other kind of doing some other kind of spirit work, and certainly within the ceremonial magic context, you may have had the experience that an entity will arrive, a being, a spirit being or an angel, a daimon of some sort will arrive in front of the circle or in the crystal. You will get a distinct impression that they were there, but that communication is maybe not as simple as you would have thought it should have been. You might be receiving images, you might be receiving sensations and feelings, you might be getting colors and other kinds of interesting visual effects, and these are all things that can happen during evocation circumstances. But getting clear communication, a yes or a no, sometimes is almost impossible if you're just doing it with direct scrying, with direct communication and evocation. So therefore, sometimes it is very useful and important to have a divination tool in the circle or in the context where you are doing the spirit work to communicate with the spirit. And this is why this technique was developed, or this is why I came up with this. It's not something solely of my own invention. It incorporates some things that I've found in other places, but it was really designed for spirit communication. It's a yes, no, maybe tarot oracle, and it also incorporates reading with reversals. And I'm also going to teach you a very easy way of reading with reversals if you don't normally read with reversals, because reversals form an important part of using this technique. Nonetheless, if you're interested in a good yes-no oracle, that'll give you a yes, a no, or a maybe response that's accurate. If you're more interested in spirit work, then you might find this technique useful. I found it very handy. And the reason I find it handy is that often when in a ceremonial context or in a spirit work context, I'm in contact with a spiritual creature of some sort, I will be receiving all kinds of information. I will be receiving visual impressions. I will be receiving signs or symbols, and different spiritual creatures communicate in different ways. And what I like to then do is to use this as either a way of confirming the information, the impressions that I have received, and getting some clear divination using the tarot cards that will confirm my understanding or that will fine-tune my understanding. Or if I'm aware of the spiritual presence around me, but I'm not getting any specific information, then this is also very handy, because then I can communicate with the spiritual creature more effectively. Now, of course, you don't have to be a ceremonial magician. You don't have to be into hermetic magic or anything like that to use this technique. You could use it for a yes/no reading, but just use the cards in a regular way as an oracle. But in my personal opinion, as a dyed-in-the-wool spiritist, as someone who adheres to the idea that accurate information or divination really comes by means of spirits, I would suggest that you try working with it as a spirit communication tool. And even though you're not a hermetic magician, a ceremonial magician, you might have a spirit guide that you could try and communicate with. You might have another deity or spiritual contact, and you might experiment using this to speak with that being. And I am pretty sure you will find that your accuracy, the divination accuracy of the results that you get using this technique will increase dramatically. That's been my experience. When you are getting information from a spiritual being, that information tends to be a lot more accurate. Now, I'm not going to go into a long discussion about the differences between a psychic reading and a reading calling on spiritual influences, because it's a bit much for this video. If you use it, if you experiment with it, please comment down below. Let me know how it worked for you. I'd love to hear how other people experience this, especially if you're a ceremonial magician or a spirit worker of some sort. Let me know how it works for you. If you have any questions, feel free to also leave your questions, and I'll be happy to answer it according to the best of my knowledge. This is all magic and spirit work, and these arts are all experimental. We're all just experimenting. We're all just trying different things and finding what works in our own experience. And this is something that I found powerful and useful, and I think you would probably find handy, and maybe it will just spark another idea for you, or whatever the case may be. I'd love to hear about it. And if you found this video interesting and useful and helpful, please like or share it or subscribe. And thank you for listening. So this technique makes use of the major arcana only. So you want to select a nice pack of very richly occult majors. I would say I use the Oswald Wirth. It's got a nice long history that I enjoy. I brought along Mercury for the ride, Lord of Divination, and the Mantic Arts, and a crystal, because we'll be talking a little bit about scrying also. Okay, so the first thing before we leap into the mechanics of the techniques, I will need to explain how reversals are interpreted within this method. And the method of reading reversals in this technique is very rational and straightforward. When we use the technique, we are setting the intention to use the tarot to communicate with us in strictly dualistic terms. That means upright cards will only express the positive meanings of the card, while reversed cards will express the negative meanings of the card. Right? And that's because each card contains within it the potential for both positive and negative interpretations, and many, especially the negative cards, tend to be very ambiguous in that way, in that they often also contain within them negative meanings. So let's start with those just to explain this, right? So in the case of, say, the Devil that we have here, or the Tower, or say the Hangman, these are cards that are classically understood to be more or less negative. Within the system, when we see, for example, a card like the Tower appear upright, then we are going to access only the good meanings, the positive expressions of this card's interpretation. So one of the positive aspects for the Tower might be a breakthrough or a flash of inspiration, a fertilizing shock, a jolt of understanding, breaking through a block of some sort. So those are some of the positive aspects, right? And when the card is upright, it is only expressing its positive aspects. If the Tower was to appear reversed, then we would get into the Tower's negative meanings. We would read it as ruin, as destruction, as collapse, as calamity, as many of the traditional interpretations might be. And only when the reversal is there do we access the negative aspects. Similarly, with a card like the Devil, upright, we might read it as sexual power or occult power, or fertility, anything like that, of those positive or natural magic, you could say. That would be one of the positive expressions of the Devil's energy. And then reversed, only when it's reversed would we then understand it to mean something like bondage, something like obsession, black magic, say for instance some demonic power, something destructive. Then we would access those meanings. But in my system, very simple. Upright, we read it as a good card, we tune into its positive aspects, and reversed, only then do we read it in its negative aspects. And the same goes for the good cards. For example, if we were to get, say, the Chariot, we would read it upright, we would read it as victory, momentum, progress, energy, direction, travel, whatever the case may be, the traditional meanings of the upright. And then only when it's reversed, we would read it as, say, defeat or, excess of force, any of those kinds of negative things that we might see for the reversal, and so on. Now we can get into the basics of the technique itself, and that's pretty straightforward. The basic technique is very simple and intuitive, and the first step, of course, would be for us to establish contact with the spirit, the angel, the daimon, or the spiritual creature that we intend to contact and communicate with using the oracle. So if you're a ceremonial magician, you will have followed your normal procedure. You might have invoked your angel or spirit into the crystal or into the triangle, however you work. And if you're in another spirit work context, you will have contacted the spirit in whatever way you would normally do. Nonetheless, we're assuming that you have established contact already, and now you are in the process of conversing and refining information, getting answers from the spirit using the technique. Okay, and the technique is very straightforward. It consists of using 3 cards, randomizing the deck and drawing 3 cards at random, making sure that you're able to get reversal. So you'll be randomizing, you'll be shuffling in such a way that you can get reversal. So that means you'll be washing the cards or however you like to do that. And then you will be drawing 3 cards. And when you draw these 3 cards, there are 4 possible configurations that the cards can arrive in. You could get 3 upright cards, right? That would give a yes. Simple. 3 upright cards give us a yes. That would be a yes to your question. 3 reversals, 3 reversed cards would give us a no. Clear, it's a no. Yeah? 2 upright cards with 1 reversal alone would give us a maybe leaning towards a yes. So that's maybe getting warmer. It's a maybe leading towards a yes, but it's still not a clear yes. It's just maybe, and something needs to be clarified. More needs to be asked of the spirit to get a full yes. So this will be, the maybe will always be the cue to do more investigation and ask more questions until you get a yes. Then the 4th possibility is 2 reversals and 1 upright card. And that will give us a maybe leaning towards a no. So that's getting colder, definitely closer to a no than a yes. And that would let you know that you're not quite on the right track. Now that as it stands would be, of course, enough to use the technique, but naturally there is a lot more to it than that. We are now free to interpret the cards themselves, keeping in mind that we are going to read the reversals and the upright cards in the way that I've just introduced, and that is going to provide a huge amount of information to the reading, right? And of course, if we get 3 upright cards, it's going to give us a clear yes, and we are then free to interpret the meanings of the cards in relationship to the question, right? The real power and efficacy of this technique, however, comes in with the maybes, right? If we get a maybe getting warmer, then when we look at this, the clue for us will definitely be in the reversal. That's where we're going to find what the problem is, the thing that is holding us back from getting that full yes. And this is really always going to often be giving us a greater depth of understanding. For example, we might have evoked a spirit, let's say, of the sun, and our intention was there to petition the spirit to grant the magician a promotion at work, let's say, right? And you might then say to the spirit, will you grant me this promotion at work? Will I be granted this promotion, right? And if we were to say get that configuration, we would be getting maybe leaning towards yes, right? So there's victory, there is strength and victory presaged, right? It's the cards are saying, the spirit is saying, yes, you've got what it takes. You're likely to succeed in that position. You have the discipline, the self-control, and the power and the potential success is there for you. But we've got the Lover's card reversed here, right? And that is pointing to conflict, because the lover upright is showing a union, is showing a harmonious relationship situation, and it's referring to relating and relationships. And when it's reversed, it's of course suggesting conflict, it's suggesting troubled relationships. So the spirit is giving us a clue, saying, yes, you've got what it takes, but there might be relationships at work that need to be worked on, right? So that's going to give you a lot more ideas for magical work that could be done. You might need to then look at working with another kind of spirit, maybe a spirit of Venus, or doing some kind of sweetening work on your manager, or whatever the case may be. But nonetheless, the spirit is giving you a clue here, and that will be in the reversal often, right? So then you might then refine the question, and you might say to the spirit, if I was to do magical work, say, let's say sweetening work on that colleague of mine that's been giving me problems, would I then be able to get that promotion at work? You would draw 3 more cards, and in that case you might get a yes with new information, or you might get a maybe leaning in another direction. And whatever the case may be, is each iteration will get you closer and closer and closer. You'll get more and more information as you go along. You will notice that if you are communicating with spirits, you've got the angel or the daimon or whatever astrological spirit or other kind of spirit you might be working, may have manifested in the crystal. You've got them there, and you're now conversing with them. You will notice that when you work with the cards in this way, the cards themselves will become alive with new meanings. It will be as if you are scrying the cards, and the spirits that you usually, that when we have doing this in contact with the spirit, you might find there are some interesting effects that happen, that you notice details in the card. You may notice the face of one of the figures winking. A new reversed meaning may suddenly pop into your head that has never occurred to you before. And whatever the case may be, you should really take this information into account with your whole interpretation, because that is the spirit working through the medium of the symbolism of the cards. So that can be very powerful and useful. You use the basic structure of the technique, the yes, the maybes, and or the no's, to give you the black and white of it, or the gray, which is helpful too. And then within that framework, more meanings can be discerned from interpreting the card, but inspired by the contact of the spirit himself. Another very interesting phenomena that you will notice when you're working with this method is that spirits like to speak with their own symbols. And if you're a ceremonial magician, for example, and you have evoked, let's say, a solar angel into the crystal, or in front of the circle, or whatever method you use, don't be surprised, for example, if the sun pops out in the card, right? Because the spirits like to use images and things that are in accord or are in harmony with their own nature. Often I will find, if I'm working with a solar entity, the sun will pop out. And for me, that is a great confirmation. It's saying, yes, I'm here. So don't be surprised. And then, of course, if you've got spirits of another sort, you might find, if you have a spirit with a strong leonine aspect, like Virtual, for example, don't be surprised to see the strength card, something with a lion, come out. Whatever the case may be, this is a very common phenomenon with the spirits, and it should be taken as a confirmation of the spirit's presence there, and is a very handy thing to keep in mind. I just want to talk a little bit more about how important it is to read the reversals in the way that I have described. Now, if you were to read the reversals without parsing them by their upright or reversed position, but just read them in the regular way. So let's say, for example, you have contacted a spirit of Jupiter, and you have asked the spirit of Jupiter whether it would help you with wealth magic, right? So that's good etiquette. You've addressed the spirit, and you ask the spirit, are you able and willing to help me with wealth magic, right? And you get a clear yes. And if you were to read this in the regular way, it would say yes, and then we have the tower there, destruction. And if you're reading combinations, you would have relationships are destroyed, and we would then be we're kind of tempted to tease out a negative meaning out of the fool here, saying something like folly or madness, right? So that's going to be extremely confusing, and it will bring a ritual grinding to a halt. Believe me, I speak from experience. So this is one of the reasons that the system works this way. You are only reading the positive meanings in the upright position, and the cards are free to do so because they're also free to express their full negative meaning. So there's no need to worry about that. The negative meanings will also still be available to you, but in this event, reading it as it should be read, it would be, for instance, a new beginning or a journey, trust, harmonious relationships, and an inspiration, a breakthrough, a jolt of fertilizing power, right? So that you would, and then of course we're speaking to a Jupiter spirit, so we've got that lightning bolt there, so there's something Jupiterian going on there, and we can say, aha, this let's say Zadkiel, he's here and he's giving us a little nod. I know that the tower traditionally has got a Mars kind of association with it, but nonetheless we could understand that bolt of lightning to be referring to Jupiterian kind of symbolism. Had it been this way, it would say maybe leaning towards a yes. Cool, great. The spirit is willing to help us with this magic, maybe leaning towards a yes, but it's giving us a little warning. It's saying destruction, ruin of relationships. So he's saying that there might be a problem there. I can maybe help you with this, but there is some issue going on there with relationship. There's some fall from grace, maybe having to do with the relationship that you need to take care of first. And then, of course, you're free to divine more, to ask more questions, and then to find solutions for this issue before progressing. But now we have a rational, clear, unambiguous thing there. The spirit is saying maybe, but. Very helpful. It will resolve a lot of confusion, keeping that in mind. The final golden key, as it were, to making this method really sing, to making this method really work well and give us clear, unambiguous answers every time, is the question. We always phrase the questions with a positive outcome in mind. For example, you would ask, will I keep my job, right? Not will I lose my job. That is because losing the job would be a negative outcome. A simple way of doing that is to keep in mind, what do I want? Ask yourself, what is it that you want? What is it that you're after with this question, and then backward engineer the question from there. Another example here that might be useful, especially magicians, witches, and so forth, people who run in magical circles, might be concerned about magical attacks, whether they've been hexed or cursed, that sort of thing. And this is another area, a good example for phrasing the question, where we want to phrase the question based on the positive outcome. So we ask ourselves, you have perhaps invoked some sort of protective spirit, and you want to know where you had some signs that you've been under magical attack. We have some concerns. Maybe you had a dream. Maybe you had some bad things happen, and you want to confirm whether you are you okay or not, right? So you wouldn't ask the spirit using this technique, am I under magical attack, right? You would, for example, ask, in this case, you'd ask yourself, what do I want? I want to be free from magical interference. I want to be safe. So then you might phrase the question, am I safe and free from magical interference, or am I safe and free of witchcraft at this time? Yeah, and then if you get a yes, you would be able to interpret these based on that yes. So we're going to tune into the positive aspects of the magician, the positive aspects of the devil, and the positive aspects of the high priestess. So there's skill, magical skill. Here we have the power of natural magic, say. So these two cards for me are talking about your ability, your skill, the protection that you have in place. Perhaps you have some sort of spirit or familiar that has been protecting you really well, and this is talking about some sort of psychic sensitivity. Maybe you've been picking up something based on your psychic sensitivity, and not necessarily a magical attack, but maybe it's a precognition of some sort. There's an example, right? But had you phrased the question, am I safe and free from witchcraft, and you got it this way, now we tune into the negative meanings, right? So the magician, normally a skillful wizard or a skillful worker of some sort, someone who has the ability to manifest the will, now becomes a liar, a trickster, or you could say a juggler or a sorcerer, something negative there, right? We've got hidden influences, malign hidden influences there, and there we have black magic. Okay, so then it's going, no, you are not safe and free from witchcraft, right? You're not safe and free from witchcraft. You're not safe and spiritually clean, whatever the case may be, right? Now, say for instance, you'd ask that question, am I safe and free from magical interference? Am I safe and free from curses at this time? And let's say you got this combination. You get maybe leaning towards a no, right? Because we've got the devil reversed, so the magician reversed, and the high priestess upright. So this is saying maybe leaning towards a no. So there's something going on. There is the hint of magic here. There is the hint of some kind of something having gone wrong, a mistake of some sort, a lack of skill. But it's not as it seems. There is something hidden about this that is perhaps not as it seems. So maybe it's not necessarily that you've been spiritually attacked, but maybe you inadvertently made contact with a spiritual being, or you didn't dismiss some sort of spiritual being that you had contact with before due to your lack of skill, or being not being diligent and precise, skillful with your work, and that's creating some unknown problems for you. Maybe it's not that someone is attacking you, but something has gone wrong. There is some sort of influence. So now you're on the right track. So you then might refine this, ask more questions. You might say, want to know about. You could directly ask, is it a lingering spirit, and that kind of thing, and get more answers that way. So the secret there is to always phrase the question with a positive outcome in mind, because the cards are not just giving us yeses and nos, they're actually giving us an auspice. 3 upright is a positive auspice, 3 reversed is a negative auspice. So it's based on a good-bad polarity. So it's very important to have that good-bad polarity in the question itself, and making sure that you set the question up in such a way that a yes will correspond with an auspicious set of symbols here, and a no would correspond with inauspicious symbols. And that way you will avoid a lot of confusion. When in doubt, ask what it is that you want, and then backward engineer your question based on what it is that you want. And remember, no either or questions. Keep a question simple and succinct, and then you will have simple and succinct answers. Now there is a little bit of etiquette that I want to impart to my viewers with regards to communicating with spirits using this, or any oracle really. I find that it is polite if you are communicating with a spirit or an angel or a diamond of some sort, and your intention is to petition them to do some work for you, to grant you a favor of some sort. You are going to direct them magically in some way. I find it's very good and polite and helpful to ask if they are willing and able to do so. So you begin, if your intention is to work with, say, a spirit of Mercury or an angel of Mercury to help stimulate your finances or create new business opportunities for you, or do some communication style magic, something of that sort. It's always a good idea to first begin by asking, are you willing and able to do so, right? If you get a yes, then you know, great. If you get a maybe leaning towards a yes, that reversed card is going to give you lots of helpful information, and you can then discuss it with the spirit and refine, fine-tune what it needs. Maybe if you're getting a maybe with the reverse card leading towards yes, maybe that spirit needs an offering of some sort. Maybe the spirit needs you to do some more spiritual cleansing, or maybe you need to work in some other way in addition to it. But the card, the reversed card, and of course the visionary information that you receive while you're scrying from the spirits, the inspiration that you see from scrying the cards, all of this will figure into it. But it's very good to do this because it's going to make your magic better. It's going to make your results a lot better. So I always ask, are you willing, able to help me with such and such, before I give the charge to the spirit or send it off to do things, right? Similarly, when you're done with your communications, and you've done your scrying and you're about to wrap up, it's a good idea to ask the spirit whether they have said everything, and you can ask something to the effect of, is this session closed? Can we part in peace? Or have you finished your communication with me? And then if you get a yes, then you know. If you get all reversals a clear no, then you know, there's more to be learned here. So maybe often I find when I get a definite no, that the spirit has either a warning or some very crucial additional information salient to whatever magical activities I'm doing, right? And often the most fruitful things will come out at that last point, because now the spirit has the opportunity to pipe up and give some message to you that it brings of its own accord, right? And often you will get warnings or additional ideas and so forth, and you would refine that by scrying, by asking more yes/no questions and so forth, and then again, once you've had all that information come through, you can ask again, does the session close? And then they will usually just say, yes, and that's all good and well. And then you've been able to conclude the session and know that everything is harmonious. And if not, you've had some good new information come forward that is going to be vital for moving forward in your magical practice.